Hello and welcome to Supporting Wellbeing COVID-19. My name is Stephen Gamble and I'm the founder of Mananchor. Mananchor is a mental health and wellbeing movement that's designed to educate and empower the community to have real conversations around mental health and to give the community the tools to support their own wellbeing as well as the wellbeing of the people around them. I'd like to thank Visual Connections for the opportunity to present today and congratulate them on their virtual trade show. Today, as I said, we'll be talking about mental health and mental wellbeing during COVID-19. To start with, I'd like to acknowledge those that have lived experience with a mental health disorder, supported a loved one with a mental health disorder, and those that have been touched by suicide. Talking about mental health and suicide can be triggering for some within our community. So I'd like to ask, if you do feel triggered, please reach out to your support network or your local health professional. So today, as I said, we're talking about mental health and wellbeing during COVID-19. So I thought a good place to start would be to understand what Australian mental health looked like before COVID-19. So as you can see here, I have a number of different statistics around mental health. Now, some of you out there may have read these statistics or know these statistics, and some may not. But it's important that we start from a baseline to understand where we're at. 1 in 5 Australians aged between 16 and 85 will experience a common mental illness in a 12-month period. Now, the more common mental illnesses that they're talking about here is anxiety, depression, and substance abuse. We'll look at males now. 1 in 8 males will experience depression in a 12-month period. 1 in 5 males will experience anxiety over a 12-month period. Females, 1 in 5 females will experience depression. 1 in 3 females will experience anxiety in a 12-month period. Now, why I'm so passionate about mental health is these next couple of statistics. Only 35% of people living with a mental health disorder seek professional support. My goal and my passion is to have as many conversations about mental health with as many people as possible, because every conversation we have removes a barrier, removes a stigma, and creates an opportunity for someone to reach out. The more conversations we have, the higher that percentage will go up. And you don't need to be a health professional to be able to have these conversations. Each of us watching this have the power to empower an individual to seek support, and all we need to do is be there to support them originally. This next statistic I've said hundreds of times, and every time I say it, I still get goosebumps. Suicide is the leading cause of death in males aged between 15 and 44. Now, usually if I was doing this in front of a group or an online Zoom with a class, I'd ask them, what would you think would be the number one cause of death in males aged between 15 and 44? A lot of the answers will be workplace accident, car accident, drug overdose, maybe a blood-borne cancer like leukemia or testicular cancer. But suicide, it's hard to understand that suicide would be the leading cause of death in males aged between 15 and 44. 75% of all suicides are male. 3,046. 3,046 people in Australia took their own life in 2018. Now, 3,046 was a reduction from 2017, but the number is still way too high. 3,046 people thought suicide was their only option. 3,046 families lost a loved one. Now, we talk about mental health, we talk about mental health during COVID-19, and it's completely understandable that some people within our community will be feeling high levels of stress and low levels of anxiety. One, from the pandemic itself and the health effects it can have on people. 2, the social isolation, which can be crippling for some people. And then 3, the financial fallout from the pandemic itself. And this financial pandemic will be a lot worse for the Australian community and the mental health of Australians than the pandemic itself. So when we look at what it looks like today, I've been speaking to some of my friends and colleagues from Lifeline, and as of today, Lifeline are 25% up on calls to their crisis hotline. 25%. Now, over the Christmas period with the fires along the East Coast, they saw a 10 to 15% increase in calls to the crisis hotline. And now we're at 25. Beyond Blue are having a 40% increase in calls. I recently read a study with some modelling from the Brain and Mind Centre of what the suicide rate in Australia would look like if unemployment was to reach 9, 10, 11%. And they've estimated that there'd be a 25% increase in suicide in Australia. Now that's scary when we've just looked at the 3,046 figure, isn't it? So look, stress can be great for some people. It can help work out solutions around issues and problems. So you can have positive stress, but when stress becomes negative and it becomes de-stress and starts to impact the way you live your life, that's when we need to really address it. We need to de-escalate it before it turns into a crisis. And a crisis is really when you're not able to cope with the situation, okay? So we need to address stress before it becomes de-stress and before it becomes a crisis. Like most medical illnesses, early intervention is key for someone becoming well and reducing the time of treatment. So, like most medical illnesses, mental health still works along that same track: prevention, early intervention and treatment. So we'll unpack some of these now. Communication. In more positive times, communication is the key, and it makes no difference. We're living in the pandemic now. Communication is still the key. Being able to communicate with friends and family, work colleagues, and health professionals about how you're feeling is unbelievably important. The social isolation that people are feeling at the moment is unbelievably detrimental to their well-being. But it's important that we try to stay connected as much as possible. Be a little bit creative. Pick up the phone, FaceTime, Zoom, do whatever we can. But it's really important to have real conversations about how we are feeling, what effects the pandemic has had on us, and what are some of the positive things that the pandemic has brought to us as well. Some of the silver linings. Exercise. Exercise is a fantastic way to clear the mind, to boost your energy, and to enhance your well-being. Anything from a simple 15-minute walk or a light jog or a more aerobic exercise like a gym workout, if possible. Even a little bit of yoga is great for the mind. Diet. Eating a healthy diet, a balanced diet is super important. We find that where we live such a busy life, and sometimes our dietary requirements can become second best or put aside. Diet is key to having a healthy body and a healthy mind. Unfortunately, with the isolation, we've seen a really big increase in alcohol consumption. 70% of people are saying that they're consuming more alcohol during the isolation period. So it's really important that we're mindful of our alcohol intake. Limit your news feeds. It's really important to stay connected, but we have to be mindful that the constant barrage of negative media can have a really negative effect on our well-being as well as our family's well-being. I understand for managers and business owners, they have to stay connected as well with ever-changing restrictions, ever-changing add-ons for tax purposes and JobKeeper allowance and so on. But it's really important for you people to step away and take a breather and move away from that, because it is unhealthy and it can be detrimental to your well-being. Another one is mindfulness. Now, some people will think mindfulness is for the hippies. Mindfulness is real. Mindfulness is what elite athletes use to support their well-being. So if they can use it, I can use it. Meditation, breathing exercise, and getting regular sleep is really important. Early intervention. Early intervention is the key to stopping someone becoming unwell and reducing the time of treatment, okay? So number one is knowing the signs. Being able to identify the early signs is key. Being able to identify the signs in yourself to be able to reach out and seek support, or see it in someone that you care for, a loved one, family member, or work colleague. Early intervention is 100% key to becoming well again. Reaching out. If you feel that a change in your feelings, behaviour, or physical well-being, it's time you reach out. If you feel that change over a week or 2 weeks, that feeling, and you notice those physical signs as well, it's really important that you do seek support. Either reach out to a family member or reach out to your GP. Alternatively as well, we have reaching out to give support. And now this can be a difficult one because, one, people don't want to intrude in people's lives, and two, people don't want to make the situation worse. So I'm here to tell you today, you're not going to make the situation worse unless you're completely unsensitive and unempathetic and completely off track. You will not offend someone. What you will do is remove a lot of weight from their shoulders. One of the biggest fears that holds people back from reaching out is the fear of rejection and the isolation that they feel. If you reach out to someone about the changes that you've seen in them, some of the signs and maybe some of the symptoms that you've seen in them, you can really change their world. And seeking clinical support, it's really important that you seek the support of a health professional so that you can work on a plan of wellness. And a really fantastic way to start is with your GP, with the support of a family member if you can. Now, we spoke about identifying some of the signs and symptoms, but one of the little key tricks and indicators that you can do is notice a trigger or an experience or a situation in someone's life that could trigger a mental health crisis. And so what we have some of the more common triggers. Now, this won't be the case all the time. Unfortunately, some people are really good at wearing the mask, but for those that have more acute signs or subtle signs that you can see, this is a good indicator, these next couple of slides, of how you can kind of see in yourself if there's something going on, you need support, or that there's someone that you care about that may need support. So these are some common triggers, experiences, life experiences that could trigger a mental health disorder or crisis. Stress, loss of a loved one, traumatic event, relationship breakdown, alcohol and drug abuse, trauma, bullying, intimidation, social pressures and expectations, financial expectations, workplace pressures, personally unrealistic expectations, discrimination based on sexuality or gender identification, domestic violence, infertility and prenatal loss, pregnancy and menopause. Now, the social pressures and expectations, the financial expectations, workplace pressures, and the personally unrealistic expectations are really on point at this point in time with COVID-19. But even before COVID-19, it is a massive bugbear of mine that people live outside of their means and live unhappy, unsustainable lifestyles to keep up with the Joneses. It doesn't matter what suburb you're in, what postcode you're in, people are doing it. A life is to be lived, to be enjoyed, not to be a slave to someone else's dreams. Live your life to how you want to live it. Sorry, that was a little rant by me, but it's one of my personal bugbears. So you have these triggers that you can that you may be experiencing yourself, or you may know that someone else has experienced. And then you have a few signs and symptoms. We have behaviours, feelings, and physical symptoms. So someone has working through maybe a relationship breakdown or a traumatic event. And then you start to see changes in their behaviours, feelings, and physical signs. So some of the behaviours are withdrawn, not being able to complete tasks, relying on alcohol and drugs, lack of concentration, abstaining from social events. And some of the feelings are overwhelmed, guilty, irritable, frustrated, low in confidence, unhappy, indecisive, disappointed, miserable, and sad. And some of the physical signs, or symptoms, should I say, some of the things that you may be feeling in yourself or you may see in someone, is tired all the time, sick and run down, headache and muscle pain, churning stomach, loss of change in appetite, and significant weight gain or loss. So you may have someone that may have had a relationship breakdown, or well, let's look at, now at COVID-19. Unfortunately, someone may have been stood down or made redundant. They're abstaining from social events, or withdrawn, or relying on alcohol and drugs, overwhelmed, frustrated, and low in confidence, and they're looking run down, and they've seen a loss in weight. Now, you don't need to have all of these. If you notice one or two of these from either of these columns, and you know that someone's living with or living through one of these triggers, it's important that you do reach out, or if it's you, reach out for support. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a fear that you will make by reaching out, you will interfere or make the situation worse. As I said, I'm here to tell you today, you won't. One of the things that some people try to imagine that they need to do when they have a loved one or a work colleague that is working through a mental health crisis is that they need to fix them. I'm here to tell you right now that you're not here to fix anyone, okay? Your role as a friend, as a loved one, as a work colleague is to support. Now, the word fix puts a lot of pressure on us as an individual trying to help that person, okay? We remove the word fix, we remove a lot of pressure from ourselves, and we can concentrate on supporting our friend, family member, loved one, or work colleague through their crisis. So some simple tips about starting the conversation: stay calm, listen, have some really calm tone about you. Timing is really important for two aspects. Time, making sure that you've got enough time to have the conversation with the person. Two, that it is the right environment, time to have the place, time now to have the conversation, and give the person time to talk. Now, you can imagine if you've never verbalised how you're feeling before and you've reached out to them and they're letting you know how they're feeling, they need time to find those words. So you might feel there might be some awkward silence there, but I can guarantee you now, the only person they'll be feeling awkward will be you. And it's not about you, it's about the person that you're here to support. Be open, be empathetic. Empathy, we all need empathy tattooed on us. We need empathy put everywhere. Empathy is something that we learn about and we think we understand, but we can sometimes use empathy to be a little bit overindulgent as well. Empathy is about understanding what someone's going through. You might have lived through a similar situation. We call it the same but different theory. You might have lived in a situation, you might have had a relationship breakup, and then someone else might have had a relationship breakup. But the way we handle situations is different. And that's what we are. We're unique. We're same but different. But empathy is about saying, hey, I can see that you're not great. I can see that you need support. I want to know how you're feeling. I want to support you. It's being able to connect with the person and show that you're genuine in the way that you show your empathy. Don't be dismissive. Guys, we're really great at being dismissive. Girls, you have better control on being dismissive, but guys, we're really terrible at it, or a large proportion of us are really terrible at it. Hey man, you're going to be fine. Look, I know how you feel. I've done the same thing. Everything's going to be okay. Look, that's not what they want to hear. And don't be judgmental. We're not there to judge. We're there to support. They're completely different things. It's easy for us to judge. Oh, I know why Steve's feeling this way. It's because he drinks too much, or, he's overcommitted financially. He's got himself in his position. It's his problem. He shouldn't have done that. If we're there to support, we can't judge someone. But look, the conversation doesn't need to be complicated. It can be really relaxed. It's about being real. It's about being genuine and using empathy. And so I've got a little little blurb here. Matt, I've noticed you haven't been yourself lately. Is everything okay? You know, if it's not, I'm always here. I'm always here to listen and support. Now, that little 15 seconds is enough to change someone's world. You might not think so, but it is. You reaching out to someone and letting them know that you are there removes that isolation, removes that fear of being rejected, and creates an opportunity for them to reach out. I once had a friend who I had no idea was living with depression, but he came to me and said, Steve, you've started Manic. I would like to share with you my story. And this guy was a really, really popular, good-looking guy, fantastic athlete, fantastic career. And he said, for years I was walking around with a feeling like my eyes were squinted and I had my fingers in my ears. And I said, oh, explain that to me. He said, because I couldn't see anyone. I was fearful of everything until the one day when someone reached out and said, hey, I've noticed a few changes. Is everything okay? And that day, things became less blurry and he started to hear again because he realised that there was someone there to support him. And that isolation and fear was removed. And from there, he sought clinical help and he's doing really well now. But it's really important that we do take that step to reach out. One thing that we sometimes do is we reach out and we might get a closed answer back. No, I'm fine. It's just busy. Okay, well, why are you busy? There's no reason why you can't ask that next question to learn a little bit more about what's going on. But if you do get that shut down, there's no rule that you can't go back again and ask again how that person is. It might be, hey, Matt, I know we spoke last week. I have noticed changes in you. I know you said you're fine, but mate, I'm here because I'm concerned and I care about you and I want to help you. I want to support you. How are you? Now, you may get that closed question, you may close answer back again, but there's no rule to go back a third time because what you're doing is you're building respect and you're building trust. And what's friendship built on? Respect and trust. So treatment. Now, treatment is also a part of mental health that carries a large stigma and can be a big barrier for many people seeking help, especially men. I'm in the privileged position to speak to many men and women about their successful treatments around mental health. And I've spoken to some people around their unsuccessful treatments around mental health and how they became well. But look, one thing I will say now is that seeking support from a health professional about your mental health is no different from seeking support from a physio or a chiropractor. If you go into a physio with a bad hamstring, and the physio will ask you, okay, how long has the hamstring been hurting for? When did it start hurting? Was there something that triggered the hamstring hurting? And these are the same sort of questions that your GP, your counsellor, your psychologist or psychiatrist will ask you because that's what they want to get to know. They want to understand. Now, if we can do that with our physio, why can't we do that with our psychologist? There's absolutely no difference. Then we go on with the physio. The physio will then diagnose the issue and then give us a treatment plan. With a physio, it's usually exercises and other things, where your psychologist, psychiatrist, or your counsellor will give you exercises as well for you to become well again. So there's no difference between seeing a psychologist or seeking support from a physio. I just need to make that clear. So there's a number of different places that you can start. Number one is it's really easy is to start with your GP. The GP is really easy to start. Just your local GP, you sit down, tell the GP what's happening in your life, how you've been feeling. They'll then assess you with a mental health questionnaire called the mental health plan, and they'll build a bit of an idea about how and what you're living with at the moment, and then refer you on to a health professional. Now, we have some of the health professionals here, GPs as we just discussed, counsellor, occupational therapist, social worker, mental health nurse, psychologist, psychiatrist. Now, depending on what mental health disorder or the level of symptoms, if they're acute or just minor, will be what determines what health professional you'll see. But then we look at treatments and supports. Now, we look at medical treatment. Now, the use of prescription drugs for some men can be really daunting, but for treatments for mental health disorders, a wide range of different options out there, which you can sit with your health professional and work out a treatment plan that works best for both of you. Your health professional is trained to support your well-being, and they know best. But if you are unhappy with the treatment plan, it's okay to talk to them about it. One thing that I will mention now is that when I do speak to people about finding a health professional, be it a psychologist, a psychiatrist or counsellor, they say, it was a waste of time. I had no connection with the person. And I said, well, that's the problem. You had no connection with them. Now, let's break it down again. If it was a physio, if you go to a physio and you feel that you're not getting the right treatment or you haven't got the right connection with them, you'll go and find another one. If it's your hairdresser, I know it's a little bit trivial, and I'm not making light of it, but if it's a hairdresser, if you don't have a good connection with your hairdresser, you move on to the next one. If you could see me right now, I've got long hair and a long beard, so I don't have that problem. But it's really important that you have a connection with the health professional you're working with. So you have the medical treatment path, which is prescription drugs and so on. And then you have the psychological treatments as well, which you'll find with your psychologists and psychiatrists, and using things like CBT, cognitive behaviour therapy, and so on. Then you have complementary lifestyle changes. And that's, really about balance, diet, exercise, and different other tools that you can use, mindfulness, like we discussed earlier. And it can be really complementary to any of the other treatments that you may seek. Then you have support groups and recovery programs, which, if you're overcoming an issue like an addiction or another issue, it's really important that you seek that recovery program. And group support can be great because you can sit with other people that are working through the same sort of thing. And remember, family and friend. If you can have a family and friend support you, not fix you, but support you through your mental health journey to wellness, it's really important. Guys, right now I have a number of support referrals that you can go to. Lifeline, Suicide Callback Service, and Beyond Blue are really great lines for if you're in crisis or if you have someone in crisis. If someone is in danger, call 000. If someone's life is in danger or if someone is about to injure themselves or hurt themselves, call 000. We also have the men's health line, 1-800-RESPECT, domestic violence line. Domestic violence, unfortunately, is a byproduct of financial crisis, and especially with now the isolation and the increased drinking, unfortunately, there will be more cases of domestic violence in our community. Kids Helpline for 5-year-olds to 25-year-olds, and Q Life. So these are all really great support referrals. But what I like to do, and I usually do when I'm face-to-face or running a Zoom conference and I have people in front of me, I like to ask people about what they could do to support their well-being. Okay? Occasionally I get people that come back to me and say, I don't need to do anything, Steve. I'm completely on top of it. I'm completely zen. But I'm here to tell you today that we can all do something to support our well-being, or do that little bit extra. So we remember again that we live on a spectrum. Our mental health lives on a spectrum. We all have this spectrum. You may never have had your wellbeing tested. You may be 65 and never had your wellbeing tested, but doesn't mean that it won't happen. Okay, so here is a list of things that can help support your wellbeing to stay on the good side of the spectrum. Okay, we've got get regular sleep, regular exercise, eat a healthy diet, limit your alcohol intake, set yourself achievable goals, keep in touch with friends and family. Now, around the COVID-19 situation, well, some people have got really creative in the way that they can connect with people, but picking up the phone, FaceTiming, Zooming, it's really important. But before COVID-19, we sometimes took it for granted, the opportunities that we had to catch up with friends and family. We thought, we picked up our phone and we saw them on Facebook and they'd just been to Fiji. Well, I don't need to connect with my brother because I know he's been to Fiji, so everything's okay. No, we do need to connect. Just because we see someone living their life on social media doesn't mean that we've connected with them. So we need to physically or at least have that conversation with them. Do what makes you happy. Now, that's got nothing to do with your career, but it can be about your career if you'd like. But in this context, it has nothing to do with your career. This is about doing something that's a little bit indulgent, a little bit selfish for yourself. Okay? It's the perfect way to stop, set and reset your week by doing something for an hour or two each week. For me, for example, when I can, I try to duck out for a surf on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday morning, and that's a perfect way for me to stop, connect and reset for the week ahead. Understand your own limitations. Can be difficult, but we need to set ourselves those boundaries. Okay, we need to live within our means. We need to live a happy life. Control your work environment. That can be a little bit difficult if you're like me and you're working from home at the moment. I'm working from home with 2 8-year-old boys that are homeschooling and an 8-week-year-old. So, we have a full house with lots going on, so it can be difficult. But trying to set up some routine is really important when trying to control your work environment, especially if you're working from home. When things get back to normal, which they will, it's really important to have that balance with your work-life balance. Now, these last 4 are really important as well. Let's talk, okay? Talking is key, communication is key. Let's stay connected to our friends, family. If not for our own well-being, for their well-being as well. Understand the signs. You can go back anytime you like to this presentation, or you can take screenshots, or you can get in contact with me via ManAnchor for a copy of these. If you can, take a screenshot, put them up in your lunchroom, put them up everywhere so that you can share the signs and symptoms with your staff. If not, we've got some great posters that are free to download from on our website. Seek help if you need it. It's really important. See your GP. Remember, there's nothing to be ashamed of. A mental illness is like any other illness. It's like pulling your hammy or having an upset stomach. There's no difference. You just need to seek support and work on a treatment plan. And most importantly, know that you're not alone. Your friends and family are there. They will support you. Your work colleagues are there. They will support you. If not, Lifeline are there 24/7 for you to support you. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. My alarm just went off, so I did it perfectly in time, which is great because it took me 3 goes to do it. So let's have a laugh about that. But guys, if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, stephen@mananchor.com.au, or you can go download a few resources or see our programs at mananchor.com.au, or you can follow us on our social medias, ManAnchor, on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please look after yourself. Please be mindful of the people in your life, your community. Please use empathy and care, self-care, And I'd like to thank Visual Connections for the opportunity once again. Stay safe and look after each other.